Welcome back to the War Room, my beautiful people and fight fans from all around the world. I am your fight goddess, Chris Butler. I'm here with my boxing family. My sister, Malissa Smith. She is a women's boxing historian. And my boy, Eddie Goldman. We call him the conscious of combat sports. And look, folks, it is about to be a jam packed women's boxing weekend. So we have to kick this show off today with Malissa. Please tell us who is fighting. I know Clarissa Shields is taking on Savannah Marshall in the O2 Arena in London on Saturday. And I think that's going to be on ESPN Plus. So look, tell us what's going down and who's going to be on that fight card, because it's all women. It's an all women's fight card. You guys understand how fucking important that is? All women. Let's go, Melissa. Hey, listen, turn your microphone on, baby. Turn your microphone on.
Oh, well, you missed it, but here I go. All women, yes.
Yes.
Not only all women, but just all fabulous, amazing women. Best versus the best.
That's right.
We are talking serious elite. So what do we got? We got at the O2, as my girl, fight goddess, Angry Afro Radio had to say. We are talking, yes. Serious stuff. O2 is the big arena where folks, when they go to see those big fights in London, they go to the O2. It's like Madison Square Garden. Only it's the O2 in London. So this is the big fucking deal, right?
That's right.
All female card. Is it the first all female card in England? No. Whoops. Sorry. See, you got fire department coming by. That's how loud this is all about. I got to put out the fire.
That's right.
There was an all-female card back in 1994 that our girl, our
Christy,
lady, our woman,
who
Barbara
was on the
Buttrick, put that fight together as that card together with WIBF. So fast forward 1,000 million years later, here we are, 2022, 300 years since boxing for women started that we know of. 300th anniversary, and what do we got? We got this amazing fight card with Clarissa Shields, the undisputed queen in 2 weight classes, going through her third. And she will be fighting Savannah Marshall, the only woman who has ever defeated her in a boxing match. Way back when Clarissa Shields was barely 17 years old.
Wow.
She fought Savannah Marshall in a world's event as amateurs before the Olympics happened. She happened to lose, though. I got to tell you, people, you can find that fight on YouTube, and I defy you to say that she really lost.
Really?
She was busting ass in that fight.
All right.
Coming forward, hand movement was so quick. You're like, where did those hands come from? She lost, not by a lot, really close. So I'm telling you, that was then when they were 17 and 20. Clarissa Shields, 10 years later, only 10 years later, she's 27 years old. Savannah Marshall is 30. These are 2 women at the top of their game professionally. But it's Clarissa that has all the belts.
Right.
Clarissa, who has had the extraordinary, not only amateur career, but professional career. And in her professional career, she's fought over 100 rounds already.
Right. She's 12-0 with 2 knockouts, and Savannah is 12-0 with 10 knockouts.
With 10 knockouts. Now you got to look at who her competition is. But yeah, girl has heavy hands. And, the saying is that if you're in her wheelhouse, if you allow it to be her fight, and she sets you up to be in her range and in her wheelhouse where she's going to use that torque of power, you stand the chance of getting a knockdown.
Right.
Clarissa, though, has speed, girl.
Yes.
Speed.
Speed kills power.
Speed kills power. And she's patient. And she has learned to control her emotion in the ring. So this is going to be a really important fight and a really fascinating battle. As you say, it'll be on ESPN Plus, starting in the East Coast at 2:30 in the afternoon, West Coast 11:30 in the afternoon. I'm not certain what happens to the undercard and how we can see that. I'm hoping that it's like somebody's got it up on Facebook or YouTube, but we'll see.
Right.
The other huge fight is 2 Americans. Michaela Mayer, Olympian on the same Olympic team, with Clarissa Shields in 2017, 2016 in Brazil. And she's fighting Alicia Baumgardner.
Ooh, it's gonna be a smoker right here.
Ass fighter. Oh my God. She is the woman that knocked out Terry Harper. She hit her so hard. Terry Harper just was like
knocked out on her feet.
Knocked out on her feet. Yeah. Now, Baumgardner, she's 12-1. And Michaela's 17-0. Plus, she has a very impressive amateur career, and she's fearless. Earl is fearless. So this is going to be another really interesting fight. Does she have more tools in her toolbox? It's very possible. We will see. Mayer has a beautiful jab. Her jab is gorgeous. But, Baumgardner's no slouch. So this is, again,
she's an underdog, Baumgardner.
She's definitely the underdog, but she's got power and she's got real savvy in the ring. She's got a great defensive movement, great head movement. So this is going to not be for undisputed, but it is for further unification of the belts. It'll be IBF, WBC, WBO, and WIBO to thrown in there. The only other one is WBA, which is not up for contention at this point. So this is an incredible top of the card, but she got some serious fighting underneath. Most of them, I think a few on the A side, let's put it that way. Most of these fighters are 1-0, 2-0, 3-0. They got Caroline Dubois, who's out of UK, really strong amateur background, really terrific. And then you got the third member of the USA's 2016 Olympic team, Ginny Fuchs, who's just recently turned pro after the 2020 Olympics. She will also be on the card. Now she's fighting with Top Rank. She's all of 1-0, but she's going to be on that card. She's fighting 6-rounders. In fact, all the fights underneath are 6-rounders. So you got some really good women on there, and I'm just hoping that we get to figure out how we can find, the early part of that undercard. Another woman to watch out for is Sarah Liegman. She's a German fighter. She's 5-0, but she has already had a main event. Her last fight was the main event, like 2 weeks ago in Germany.
What?
They
2 weeks ago
in Germany. Yeah. So she's back in the ring. So
she didn't get hurt. She was in the ring 2 weeks later.
Yeah, she's like, nope, I'm fighting. So because she had it scheduled because the fight. This is the fight that was delayed due to the death of Queen Elizabeth. So anyway,
they're calling this the Royal Rumble.
What are these ladies getting paid? Now, you got to say, when you had Taylor Serrano, man, they were broadcasting from like the mountaintops, $1 million, $1 million a fighter.
Exactly.
We're not hearing
Crickets.
Buckus. Zero. So what are these women being paid? Is it 7 figures just for the whole package? Is it 7 figures for 2? I mean, what are we really talking here? There has been zero. And these ladies, they would be talking. So I don't know that they're getting $1 million a piece or £1 million a piece. So I guess we'll eventually find out. And we certainly don't know what the ladies are making on the undercard, but they are getting the exposure of a lifetime. It is a really big deal in the media out in London. And I got to say, even yours truly is going to be on a BBC radio in the middle of the night.
Right on, baby.
On their business show, on their business radio show, talking about the business of women's boxing. So I'm kind of excited about that. But, more local to the U.S., we got to shout out to our girl, Heather Hardy. She's coming back in the ring Heather. On Thursday. She'll be
this Thursday?
This Thursday, the 13th. She's fighting in New York at Sony, a small Sony Theater on 42nd Street. The cool thing about this is she is also co-promoting this with folks from Boxing Insider. They're starting something called Larry Goldberg, who's with Boxing Insider. He got his promoter's license, and Lou DiBella is
Boxing Insider, the magazine.
Yeah,
online
the
magazine.
boxing, the online, yeah,
And so
those
they're now
guys.
going to promote
They're gonna
fighters.
be doing
Isn't that
some
a conflict of
promoting.
interest?
Well, that's an
No, kind
interesting
of. It's
question.
wow,
Yeah,
interesting.
well,
Okay, never mind. Keep
interesting.
going.
But the Larry is being, Ludabella has a kindly uncle's arm around him, and
Passing the
Heather Hardy is
torch.
also going to be, has been doing double duty, helping with the promotion of this fight,
Mhm.
card, and sort of giving the insider's view of what it is to put together a fight card. So
Right.
that's all good for her and for where her future may end up. So that's kind of exciting. And those are just the two big, huge, amazing things that are
Right.
happening this
It,
weekend.
this is a
I'm in like
Yeah,
women's boxing heaven here, babe.
that's all right. We all in women's boxing heaven right now. I can't
Women's
wait to see. This
boxing
is going to be a
heaven.
great week.
I just want to add a couple of things to what Melissa said. Well, we don't know the money. This fight will be in the UK on Sky Sports. It won't be on pay-per-view. It'll be on regular Sky
Nice.
Sports.
Nice.
And while that'll allow more people, I guess, to see it, it may affect the amount of money that's coming in for this. So we don't really know. They claim, well, it's better for the fans and all this, but they usually put the real big fights like an Anthony Joshua fight or a Tyson Fury fight, although he's on the other big network, the BT Sport, whatever. Those usually end up on pay-per-view there. This one didn't, so we have to keep
That's
that in
okay.
mind.
Right.
The other thing is when you're comparing the records, a point Melissa made, Clarissa Shields never had the opportunity to pad her record early in her career, which is
Wow.
what we've seen a lot of happening, particularly with male fighters. You build them up to 20-0, where maybe 15 of those people never stood or more never
Right.
stood a chance against you. Her first fight as a pro, her debut, was against Franchon Cruz Dezern. Now, while that was her debut, she's gone on to be a champion in her own right. And right away, she jumped into fighting fighters with more wins, with more experience than her in almost all of those earlier fights, and many of whom were undefeated and have gone on to capture belts on their own. Whereas Savannah Marshall, who was mainly fighting in the UK, and this isn't necessarily a big criticism of her, had that opportunity to fight a lot of tomato cans. If you look at
Mm-hmm.
some of these knockouts, just look at the records. Some of these people she fought 1-6, 3-25, 11-55, 8-12. She went knock out a lot of people like this that really stood no chance against her. She's a good fighter. I'm not knocking her at all. Just saying that you got to look at what the whole record was.
Right.
What
Yeah,
she
no, you're
has.
absolutely right. And not only that, in Clarissa's fourth fight, which was like a little more than 6 months after her debut. She debuted in November of 2016, fought Franchon Cruz, the zone who she said was her hardest fight ever in her life.
Wow.
Within, by August of 2017, she was fighting Nikki Adler, who was the reigning WBC super middleweight fighter, and she beat her.
She was messing around.
She
She
got a
knocked her out. She got
TKO
a
in the fifth
TKO.
round. And then her next fight was Tori Nelson, right? Who's a champion. And then she fought Hannah Gabriels. So, and I thank Eddie for this. She has fought champions since her fourth fight. And the women she fought before that were also champions at some
Right.
point in their careers.
She's not
So,
fighting tomato cans.
She was not
Right.
fighting.
And it shows the disrespect to
Yep.
women's boxing in the United States, because these fights were generally in the United States, and she had trouble getting a network to put her on. She would jump around from one network to another, and eventually, had to go to the UK, to fight over there to get these main event fights, as Melissa said, in a major arena, the O2 Arena, which I think was where they held the boxing in the 2012 Olympics. And
No, it wasn't
so,
there, but yeah, but they've had like AJ has fought there, at the
right,
O2.
it's amazing. Like you said, it's like the Garden or someplace like that. And that just shows the disrespect that's given, and the fact also that she's had to go to fight in MMA
Yep.
because it was making more money, at least till recently, in MMA, where she was a novice and had no background in wrestling or submission fighting or anything like that, to make some money, more than she was making with all these championship bouts in boxing, while the networks and the promoters, most of them were basically snubbing her in the United States. So it's really disgraceful.
Yeah, I mean, she had a deal with Showtime, but ultimately they wouldn't give her the money, you know.
Exactly.
And she went out on her own. She did her own pay-per-view. That was bold.
I'm gonna
And that
tell
was
you now, if Clarissa had been white, you can guarantee you she would have had a
oh,
payday, a big
yeah.
payday, a
Well,
big
yeah, and that's
payday.
that's the you cannot discount the racism that's been
Right,
implicit for her because she's herself. She's from Flint and proud.
right, right.
The woman wears blue in her hair to remind
Hmm.
everybody in the world that Flint has no friggin' clean water.
That's right.
So, yeah, she's unapologetic. This is me. I'm a
Hmm.
great fighter. I'm the
Yep,
greatest woman of all time. And you know what? She just may end up being that
that's
exactly.
right. She's woke.
Now, she is the GOAT. And
That's right.
so this is a big deal. She took the boxer deal because they were going to give her 7 figures for the 2 fights. She's already had the one. The one was the setup for her to then fight Savannah
Okay.
Marshall. Whether they ever, whether they expanded that deal after Taylor Serrano, I tend to doubt it because we have heard, as we said earlier, crickets about this,
Right.
about the money. But thank you, Eddie. You're absolutely right. She has been underpaid her entire career until
Hmm.
now.
Exactly. And what weight class are they fighting at? What
They're
pound?
fighting at middleweight.
Okay.
They're fighting at middleweight.
That's what, 145 for women?
160.
160 for women is middleweight
165. Yeah, something like
The
oh
that.
weight
wow.
classes are the same in boxing.
For
Yeah.
women and men.
Yeah,
Yes.
same
How come I didn't
same.
know that?
Yeah, same. And 154 is super welter or junior middleweight. That she is the she already has the undisputed at junior welterweight. So she's been down to 154 and beat all of them.
Right.
So
So wait, so the weight classes for MMA for women are different then, right? I don't think they're the same.
No, they're actually in MMA the same.
Same? Why did I
same.
think they had different weight classes for women than men? I'm tripping. I'm
No.
getting old over here. That's
Well, you know what you do have though is in Olympic boxing, you only have 5 weight classes represented. When Clarissa fought, there were only 3. But
okay.
starting in 2020, it went up to 5. So there's now 5 weight classes.
Okay,
But
because I know
at
there
that
was like
time, there were only
yeah.
3.
Okay. That must be where my brain is set on.
Yep.
But anyway, all right, look, Eddie, let's just touch briefly. I know the Yankees are playing tonight and you are anxious and ready to hop off this microphone, but please give us an update.
Well, we got a little while till they start, but there's a real important story that has to be discussed.
Okay.
And this is a follow-up of our coverage of the slow death and self-destruction of Olympic boxing. And this happened last week when the IBA board of directors, through the president Umar Kremlev of Russia and a pal and confidant of Putin, announced that unlike any other known international federation in the Olympic movement, they're going to allow boxers from Russia and Belarus to resume competing in their uh, in their own name, under their own flags, if they get a gold medal, rather than the the semi ban that they had competing under the name of Russian Olympic Committee or neutrals or something like this. And a lot of people were really surprised by that. But if you look at the whole history, as we've been talking about the direction of IBA, they are basically owned at this point by Russia. They're mainly financed by Gazprom, which is the Russian mainly owned and controlled energy monopoly that is. And this violates two bans that have been put in place in the Olympic movement, although some federations have allowed these athletes to compete just as neutrals, but most of them, including, interestingly enough, wrestling, completely banned Russians. If you look at the recent World Championships in wrestling, there were no Russians competing, even though Russia has a tremendous history and many great wrestlers. They weren't allowed. They were allowed they have been allowed in judo. So these two bans were put in place. Number one had to do the violation of the Olympic truce by Russia invading and attacking Ukraine shortly after the end of the Winter Olympics and before the Winter Paralympics. And the IOC was really pissed at that. And the second ban, which is still in effect, started in December 2020, continuation of the bans put in place by WAAR, the World Anti-Doping Agency, because they still have not complied with all the reforms that were necessary and required of them from the state-sponsored doping program, the height of which apparently was back in 2014 at the Sochi Winter Olympics. And WADA has confirmed that this is supposed to expire at the end of the year, on December 16th, but it is still in effect. So the IBA has basically gone to war with the IOC and is completely flaunting these other decisions that are going on. And this, of course, has been met with great opposition in the Olympic boxing movement. Boris van der Vost, who we've been talking about a lot, the head of the Dutch Boxing Federation, and who was prevented from running for president, although he probably would have lost anyway, for the IBA, said, quote, "This decision is an enforcement of the Russian government's geopolitical agenda on the sport of boxing. It is clear that IBA is held hostage by its Russian leadership, and they are determined to keep the governing body under their control." And he said, "We will be looking for ways to ensure boxing competition integrity, and will continue our fight to secure an Olympic future for our sport," and this is the real key part, "with or without the IBA." And this already has started to lead to a revolt within the Olympic movement and within amateur boxing against IBA because of this decision. First, the boxing federations of Finland and Sweden, which, by the way, are on their way to both joining NATO, said they will boycott IBA events where Russian and Belarusian fighters compete. And then it was said that the Irish youth boxing team was going to boycott IBA's Youth World Championships in November in Spain. But there won't be a boycott because, according to news reports from Ireland, Spain has banned athletes from Russia and Belarus from competing. So that means they and other teams will be able to compete. And in another major move, the Olympic Council of Asia, which is a major body in the Olympics, will not permit any involvement of the IBA in the Asian Boxing Confederation, which is the IBA's regional continental federation, at the Asian Games next year in Hangzhou, China, which is in 2023. It was postponed because of the pandemic and everything that went on. That event is a qualification event for the 2024 Olympics. So they will be organizing that directly with the IBA. There have been statements from people like Mike McAtee, the executive director of USA Boxing, who denounced this, and also Vladimir Klitschko, who is still, of course, the former world heavyweight champion and an Olympic gold medalist. He's still in Ukraine helping defend his country against Russia, denounced this move. He said, IBA boxing is an example and makes a fool of itself in front of the whole world by trampling on humanistic and universal values. Boxing deserves much better. What a shame. And there was a news report that said that the vote in the IBA board of directors to allow Russia and Belarus to come back was 14-1 in favor. And the only person voting against it was a controversial Ukrainian, who the Ukrainian Boxing Federation, which a couple of days before their Congress, IBA suspended, Volodymyr Protovus, who's kind of on the outs with the Ukrainian Boxing Federation. He reported was the only one who voted against this. And the countries that were on the IBA board of directors that reportedly voted for this, very interesting. Cameroon, Puerto Rico, Thailand, Greece, French Polynesia, Morocco, Qatar, Spain, Eswatini, which is in Africa, if you're not familiar with that, Sri Lanka, Australia, where the Australian Boxing Federation people have been against Kremlin, the USA, Elise Signoli, the USA has been very outspoken, but she reportedly voted to bring the Russians back, Hungary and China, and among the athletes' representatives, India and Brazil. So what this brings to mind is what Professor Richard McLaren said in one of his reports, was that you can have the greatest structure in the world. If the people are corrupt, your organization is going to be corrupt.
That's right.
And that's what we're seeing with the IBA. So I think by completely thumbing its nose and giving the finger to the IOC, which itself is, a place that has been a world leader in corruption anyway, but to be more corrupt than the IOC, they're not going to, I just don't see how they're going to stand for this. Even though the IOC is toying with the idea of finding a way to get Russians to come back and compete by finding Russian athletes who are opposed to the war, which is, I don't see how they could do that, since number one, it's illegal in Russia to openly oppose the war, and you could get a long prison term for that. And number two, how are you going to tell that unless these Russian athletes are expatriates and have refugees and have fled the country? I just don't see how that is something that's workable. So it's still possible the IOC and Thomas Bach can cave in to Putin in Russia, but it also looks to be extremely unlikely at this point. And this is a very, as we know, very, very bad development, because we were just talking about Clarissa Shields. If Olympic boxing goes away, what would Clarissa Shields have been had there been no Olympic boxing? She could have tried at an early age going and fighting professionally on very small amateur cards, but she wouldn't have gotten whatever support she did get,
right,
both in terms of coaching and training and financially, as she did for being a two-time Olympic gold medalist. And we could think of so many other boxers. I mentioned Vladimir Klitschko. We could go through all the list of great professionals and all the youth that have competed in amateur boxing. The whole thing could really become marginalized and start to collapse. In the U.S., they could no, as far as I could tell, would no longer be at the Olympic Training Center. It would be
very difficult. I mean, as it is, the Olympic Training Center is used by all the USA boxing national champions. That's where they are able to work out. So it's not only the Olympians that work out there, it's all the national champions who compete in the elite level internationally. But without IBA, There's no who's going to sponsor international fights. I mean, they participate in like the Pan American Games, they participate in the Worlds and other IBA sanctioned competitions, and they wouldn't be able to go to those, which means the money, as you say, a lot of the money would dry up. Some money, the smaller USA Boxing affiliated programs, that is where all the Junior Olympics champions come from.
Golden Gloves.
Yeah, I mean, it's like USA Boxing Metro New York. You've got beautiful brawlers out in Pacifica, California. I cannot tell you. I mean, there are countless Junior Olympic champions that have come out of that program. They're sponsored through them, and then they get into USA Boxing. USA Boxing gives money to the teams so those kids can go to the Junior Olympics. Well, without IBA, it means there's no Junior Olympics anymore. How is that going to, at the elite world level?
Right.
And that's what gives them the experience and exposure to then go on into the elite level after the JOs. When they turn 17, they're able to compete into the adult wings. So, and they've had the experience of being in high level tournaments with fighters from all over the world. So, I mean, just think what happens to the boxing in India? What happens to the nascent boxing programs for women in places like Jordan and
right.
Arab countries where they just started to accept that girls box?
Well, I kind of see it as, I'm kind of hoping the IBA goes away so that the boxing community can resolve this issue without them.
Maybe,
And,
yeah.
I mean, I think it's doable because if you can deal directly, like Eddie said, the IOC is already corrupt. But if a federation can host, like if somebody can host an international game that's going to qualify them, I think that is doable.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly where it started.
The IBA.
It's certainly where it started for women.
Years. It would
in
take years
it
would take years to create a new international federation because you have to have enough countries, enough support, enough organizational structure to get that going. And there are many hints that there's going to be, particularly if the IOC says, forget it, boxing will not be on the program in 2028. They've organized it. The IOC organized it directly in 2020. They said they're going to do that in 2024. And if that directly leads to a split, it'll take a while to put that together, particularly since it looks like Kremlin and Russia have thrown a lot of money around a lot of these smaller federations. So if you're starting with 20 or 30 national federations, it may not be enough to resume as being recognized by the IOC. They might just say, we've had enough of this. It's a violent sport. But there are a lot of other things going on that could accelerate this. There was an interesting letter by the Polish sports minister, Kamil Bortniczuk, saying that the IOC should expel the IBA. And while he might have gotten some of the technicalities wrong, because technically IBA is not a member of the IOC, but there are ways that they can be thrown out of the Olympics. Mm-hmm. And it legally a little more complicated, but the basic idea is that that's going to be the end of the IBA as an Olympic federation. They could exist. There are sports federations that exist outside the IOC, but they don't again get the money or the traction or the respect that an Olympic federation does on the international level. The other thing that has to be kept in mind is that this whole battle is part of a general battle going on against corruption in world sport. This is going to take a long period of time. I mentioned this before, but last week, while the IBA rather, was disgracing itself all around the world, there was an international event that was held in Strasbourg, France, the seat of the European Parliament and streamed online. That was on the initiative of Viola von Kramon, who we've talked about before, a member of the European Parliament from Germany and from the German Green Party, that launched a movement and a campaign to establish a World Anti-Corruption Agency for Sport, WACA. It would be similar to WADA, but would have much broader jurisdiction. And report was discussed by the sports reformer Grit Hartman. You could find out more. This is really in its infancy, in its very beginning stages. And by the way, Declan Hill, the noted world expert on match fixing and a journalist and academic, specifically mentioned during that presentation, he had infiltrated match fixing gangs in Asia in the past, and he's still in touch with some of these people who are very brazen. They just talk with him, and they told him that match fixing is still going on in these same sports, mainly in international football and tennis, but also he specifically mentioned boxing and wrestling. There's match fixing still going on on the amateur level. And if you've been around professional boxing long enough, you've seen some fights that, and I don't mean back in the 40s and 50s,
right,
but more recently, some fights that were obviously fixed that's still happening today. So this movement, you're not going to be able to repair boxing separate for trying to repair other sports, and you're not going to be able to do it nationally just within the United States, which a lot of people don't understand. You're going to have to do it internationally. And right now, the center of it is this whole movement to establish WACA, that's bringing together some of the people that have been campaigning for years against corruption in world sport, and very much understand that boxing and all the combat sports are really part of that whole movement. So keep an eye on that. And I'm hoping we can get somebody who was involved directly in that movement to be interviewed on the show, which is, we have like a request in already. So if you're listening to this, jump on board. We want to get you on the War Room.
That's right. Let's go. Well, Melissa, you got anything else you want to add to that? Turn your speaker on, baby. Your mic on.
Oh, sorry about that.
It's been a long day, I know.
Oh, it's been a really long day.
That's right.
It's like, damn.
Right.
You know, look, I don't know, US doesn't necessarily have a vision of hockey, but right now Hockey Canada is in corruption hell.
Really?
They're basically they're collapsing into non-existence. They had
wow.
Andrea Skinner resigned. But they still have so much toxicity in there. So it's everywhere. And Eddie is absolutely right. We really need to move towards world governance of sports, anti-corruption. Just turn the dang spigot off.
Right. And it's everywhere. I mean, it
is everywhere.
It is everywhere. It creeps into everyday life. Yes, exactly. I mean, look, I know you guys saw I don't know if you saw my post on Twitter about the LA City Council racist rants by
Lord, yes.
You guys are straining Black and Latino relationships already in Los Angeles, and now you just made it worse. And I just can't believe that our politicians sit around talking like that with each other. It's like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah, it's talking shit. Like they think dang mics off, and they're just like letting. This is how it's like we're inside the room. Like the only thing missing was friggin' cigars. And these are the people who were caught. For those who don't know, I mean, these are like serious heavy duty pals that are like slated for bigger and better things. Well, exactly. Time to go. Enough with this.
And that's what I like is the Democrats will clean house. They tell your ass to resign, unlike Republicans who will lie, deflect
Oh.
and fucking raise money for your ass after you
Right,
get caught.
yeah, like Herschel. Oh, please.
A top
Exactly.
union
Another
leader.
show. We will do another
We
show.
gonna do. We have to do a political
We
show
have
at
to
some point.
do, please, up,
Yeah.
you know,
We gotta put
before
that on the
before
books.
election day, we're gonna do
For
an
election day.
friggin'
That's
vote
right.
blue wave day.
That's right. That's right.
Definitely. I saw the same thing in New York years ago when I was active in the school movement, when we had the local school boards. I saw the same attempt by some of the Latino politicians to divide up the community and do the
Right. That shit
same
is
thing,
crazy.
organizing on an openly anti-black racist basis that
Yep.
took place. It wasn't as
Yep.
big or as notable as what you're seeing in Los Angeles today, which involved the top union official also had
Right.
Yeah.
Ron
This
Herrera,
was
and he
like
retired. I mean, he
serious.
resigned.
Yeah, he resigned, but these are serious, heavy duty folks.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
next mayor, people gonna run for governor type of people.
Well, they're not running for
God.
governor now because we're
Hell
not
no.
voting for them.
No.
That's
And
out
by
of
the way, in
question.
terms of the corruption, I haven't really read a lot on this, but what's going on in women's soccer in the United States after all the scandals in gymnastics and other sports, the same type of thing apparently has been going on in women's soccer. So
Yep.
Oh, we're gonna have to
Yes.
talk about that next show.
Yes.
Next
Rape
show.
allegations.
Oh my gosh.
Psychological, physical torture. I mean, abuse. It's just out of control.
That is out of
I
control.
am
We need to
sick of
clean
these
up,
damn
clean it
men.
up, clean it up. All right, look, folks. If you guys don't have
Ooh.
anything else, Eddie, we're gonna let you
Yeah,
go
good.
so you can go watch that damn Yankee game. Yankees!
I'll just tell you where you can catch me.
That's
For the
right.
moment, I'm still on Twitter at NHB News. If Putin's buddy Musk takes over, we don't know what's going to actually
Logan
happen
Act
about
Musk.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's a
who is
mess.
basically conferring with Putin to find a way to destroy Ukraine. We'll see what happens, and if Twitter votes,
Traitor.
especially
Him-
after this, if they vote to put this guy, to allow this guy to come in, that just shows you the direction they want. It could be a real disaster for social media in general, but I'm still on it at NHB News, and you could catch me at eddiegoldman.com and subscribe to my Patreon page. We're talking about all this kind of stuff, and you're not seeing this. You find me the kind of coverage of the corruption and amateur boxing in the American boxing media. You find all kinds of articles planted by promoters and networks and repeating the garbage that they say. And you also have the exposure of the Inside the Games website. So there's a lot of news, but we had talked about this before, about their financial connections to Omar Kremlev, the same guy who is the president of IBA. So support independent media, because if you don't, it's going to go away, and you're going to be just stuck with all this garbage. So go to patreon.com/Eddie Goldman, sign up. It's pretty cheap, and you get a lot of insights there about boxing.